Good morning, everyone. My name is Jesus Nava. I'm the Director of Client Training and Education for TradeStation Securities. I hope you can all hear me well. Today, we're going to do a programming class. If you're new to TradeStation, TradeStation gives you the ability to create custom studies and custom strategies. So this pretty much opens TradeStation's possibilities to any type of analysis and any type of strategy testing that you want to do. Today, we're going to highlight a certain feature of EasyLanguage, which is the ability for you to reference multiple symbols and multiple time frames within one single indicator or one single strategy. The title is Create Studies and Strategies Using Multi-Data Streams in EasyLanguage, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. Before we do or get started on the class, let's go and go through some of the disclosures, and then we'll make a couple of announcements, and then we'll get started. But keep in mind that every symbol and idea that I talk about is for educational purposes. These are not recommendations of TradeStation. Also, keep in mind that online trading is not suitable for everyone, and also that past historical performance is no guarantee of future results. Sometimes we pull up the performance report of a strategy. What we see is not really what we get going forward, and we all need to be aware of that. I've also wanted to show you the TradeStation website. This is tradestation.com. But at the very top, we have a menu, and we have a whole section dedicated to learning. A new item that we added here was options education. And if you haven't been here, I want to invite and encourage everyone here to go there, learn an options education. But we are expanding our library of different options education. So far, we have a series of articles right here that highlight certain options strategies. For example, here, this one on the left is on straddles. The one right here in the middle is the bull call spreads. And the one that we did most recently is the one on bear put spreads. If you click on this article or in this content card, it'll open up an article that goes into detail about the strategy. But don't miss this little button here on the top that says watch a webinar. This is the webinar that we had last week. We had a guest speaker from the OIC, the Options Industry Council. His name is Matt Cashman, and he did a great presentation talking about zero DTE strategies and how to use, bear put spreads in a zero DTE setting. So a great webinar. You also have an educational video as part of the article. And with that, we also have custom workspaces and custom PDFs that you can download to help you in your learning if you haven't, traded these strategies. So feel free to go in here and use the links that are right here in the chat for you to jump right into the Options Education Center. Okay. First, let's talk about elements of multi-data analysis within TradeStation. Allows you to add and reference additional symbols or intervals in a chart. Now, sometimes if you're monitoring, no matter what technical analysis you choose to identify trading opportunities, you may want to look at that same study across multiple time frames. Maybe you want to see how the indicator looks on a shorter time frame, maybe a 5-minute or a 10-minute chart. You also want to see what values you get on a daily chart, and also look at what the indicator is telling you in a longer time setting. So that's what we call a multi-data analysis. And you can do that within TradeStation indicators and bring those data into your calculations and to a certain extent, find agreement between all those conditions and, take either, generate alerts when the conditions agree, or maybe generate trades if those conditions agree. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Data elements are referenced using the reserved word data n. You can add up to 50 data elements. So what that means is that the data one, the number one, would be the first symbol you add to the chart. And then from there, every symbol that you insert into the same chart will just take on a sequential number, data 2, data 3, data 4, and so forth. So up to 50 data elements, which is impressive, I don't know how many software packages or trading platforms allow you to do this, but The ability for you to introduce 50 different symbols into one single chart gives you many possibilities. Maybe you want to create an index of your own, bring all these symbols together and have an index that gives you a value of some sort. Maybe you want to create an index on your open positions. That's an interesting idea. Maybe you have some long-term positions that you have in your account, and you may want to combine them into one single calculation and watch how this index moves up and down as a collection of your positions. Just ideas of how you can use multi-data analysis. For multi-data, you have to use time-based. What that means is that you will not be able to mix symbols together if they are at a tick interval, and you will not be able to mix symbols together if they are using a price-based chart. So only accessible through time-based intervals, which it's hundreds of different possibilities by using time frame. So we have bar charts that are from seconds all the way up to monthly intervals. Here are a few examples. Value 1, the average of the close of 10 bars ago. I think we've, if you've been to my EasyLanguage classes, we've used functions. That word that you see there, the word average, it's a function. And the function requires two parameters, the value that you're averaging and for how many periods. And that's what that average does. It takes the closing prices of 10 bars and creates an average, simple average. When you don't specify which data stream that calculation is based on, data 1 is always assumed. That's what it says there on the note. So, and most indicators that you see that are built into TradeStation will not reference a data number because most of the calculations are going to be performed on the symbol that's on the chart. But as you start introducing new symbols, then you have to specify which data element that calculation belongs to. Here we have another example, value 2. Notice that it's the same function, average of the close for 10 bars, but on data 2. Data 2 tells EasyLanguage, don't look at, the symbol that you always look at, which is symbol number 1. Take a look at symbol number 2. I want an average of the closing prices of data 2. And the third example is just the same function, but referencing data 3. And it's very simple, very straightforward. There's nothing complex here. You just want to remember which symbol is which data number, because that's the important thing. EasyLanguage will assign the numbers in the order in which you insert the symbols. And that's something that you have to keep in mind. There is a window or a dialog inside of TradeStation that allows you to check which symbol is which data number, so you don't have to keep track of that manually. But we'll get to that once we start creating our indicator. Multi-data spread indicators. We're going to take a look at an example of an indicator that creates some sort of a spread. A spread meaning one symbol minus the other, and a ratio, which is one symbol divided by the other. We're going to take a look at examples or sample code that you can use for an indicator, and then we're going to take a look at a sample code that you can use in a strategy. Okay, first of all, we start with the inputs. If you've been to my programming classes, we know that we have to tell EasyLanguage what our inputs are. Inputs is like a communication between the EasyLanguage code and your TradeStation platform. So when you go to the TradeStation platform and you say, oh, I want a 20-bar moving average, you use it as an input that gets used in EasyLanguage for the calculation. Take a look at these inputs. Data series 1, close of data 1. Data series 2, close of data 2. So we're defaulting these two inputs to the close of data 1. Notice the syntax. Data 1, we already established that it's a reference to whatever symbol you have on the chart. And if you have close in front of that, close data 1, it means it has to look at the closing price of the first symbol. And this one over here looks at the closing price of the second symbol. Data series 1 and data series 2 are made up inputs. These are names. That's why they're in what's called a declaration statement. We are declaring inputs, okay? My variable here is my spread diff. So variables are little containers that are going to hold snippets of code. In this case, we have the variable word spread diff, which is also made up, and it's initialized with the number 0. The parentheses 0 just means that we're telling EasyLanguage this word is going to hold a number. It's called a numeric variable. But here's where we find the calculation. Spread diff. There's two variations of this. I don't like the fact that my notes, use spread diff A, because spread diff A is not the variable that we declared up here. So if you were to copy and paste this code into EasyLanguage, it won't verify. Why? Because as soon as it finds spread diff A, it doesn't know what it is, because we didn't declare it up here. We declared one called spread diff only. But I think when we made the note here is because we wanted to give you two different calculations on those two symbols. Take a look at spread diff A. Is data series 1 minus data series 2. Plain subtraction is in the closing price of one minus the closing price of the other. And it's going to give you a result, and that's going to be stored in this variable. We're going to build an indicator from scratch, and then we'll take a look at how we can make sense of it, okay? And spread diff B, again, mathematical formula, data series 1 divided by, we use the / for division, divided by data series 2. There's a little guy that you see right here at the very end, the semicolon. We all know that that's the punctuation mark in EasyLanguage to end the statement. And that's it. All you need to do is plot the spread diff, and you see the difference between one symbol and the other. We already have a spread diff indicator built into TradeStation, so it's not fun to create an indicator that already exists. We may do something different here so that you can see different implementations of this code. Let me just take a look at some of the things that we are going to do. All right. And what else is here? Okay, that's the first example. Notice that it's simple, straightforward. This is another indicator, which is a multi-interval indicator. So the first one was kind of, introducing multiple or different symbols. This one takes a look at maybe the same symbol, but set at different time frames. Let's go ahead and take a look. Input, mo-len. Mo-len is just a short for momentum length. We've used that many times in some of the built-in indicators. But since it's an input, you can make it anything you want. This is the declaration of inputs, and mo-len is just a made-up word that is started off at 13. Our variables are momentum, data 1, momentum, data 2. We're using abbreviations for no reason in particular. But as you are familiar with abbreviation, then you know what they are. If you don't like abbreviations, you can spell out the word. So don't feel like you have to use abbreviations. You can spell out the word momentum data 1 if that's the case, and maybe that's what we're going to do in our indicator. So momentum of data 1 is the momentum of the close of mo length, and momentum of data 2 is the same momentum of the close over mo length, but on data 2. And then we plot 1, which is momentum data 1, and we plot 2, which is momentum data 2. Does that make sense? And plot 3 is 0. Let's go ahead and build this indicator together so that we can go through the steps of building an indicator, creating an indicator, and see how simple it is to bring in multiple symbols together. Let's go ahead and take a look at my TradeStation. Pull it up here. Let me hide my trade bar at the top, and I'm just going to bring in a chart. Yes, anything that you see out there, an indicator that you probably see inside of the book, or maybe on another trading platform, maybe one of our competitors, you see a very cool indicator. All those indicators can probably be created on EasyLanguage. And in fact, I can say that very confidently that most of them can. We just need to know what the calculations are so that we would know if they can be translated into EasyLanguage code. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this, but we have a team that is fully dedicated to supporting you in that process. So you don't have to really become an EasyLanguage programmer. I don't consider myself to be an expert programmer, but I do know how to, edit symbols. I do know the basics of easy language programming, and I can teach you, how to get started. But a lot of times, you need this little bit of hand holding, to get things created. And that's what our team is there for. Now, our team, I'm not sure if everyone is aware of this, but we have the support forums. You'd have to go there and post a question. It works as a forum. There's no one you can call, but the response time is usually very quick. I think it's within 24 to 48 hours, they provide you a response. They give you guidance, and anybody here that's connected in class can create their own custom studies and strategies. Let's go ahead and create an indicator that uses two data streams. I did say that I wasn't going to do the very first example about the spread diff, but I think it's still very valid, when looking at different symbols. Let me do something here. This is SPY. I'm going to turn this into a daily chart. I'm going to turn off account orders and positions because it has all these little buys and sells, and I want to clean my chart. All right, there we go. And I want to add a symbol. This is where the magic happens. You have to add the symbol to the chart and make it a multi-data chart. If we create the indicator first that references multi-data and we put it on a chart, we're going to get an error. And there are indicators in TradeStation like the spread diff and the spread ratio. They're part of the list of studies. And if you add them to your chart, you'll get an error because those studies are specifically designed to look for multiple symbols. So you have to set up the chart first before you can use those symbols. And that's why we always get started here on the chart. I'm going to add a symbol. So I'm going to go to data and add a symbol. Very simple. Data, add symbol. I'm going to do the S&P 500 index. Notice that I'm using the ETF SPY. I'm adding the index as a second data stream, and I'm just going to click on plot here. The chart automatically opens up. It's split in two. I see SPY on the top, and I see the S&P 500 at the bottom, allowing me now to create an indicator that references these two data. Makes it very, very nice. So this is what we're going to do. I was going to create an indicator that referenced the two of them. So we saw an indicator about momentum. Yeah. Let's create a momentum study and try to put it here in a separate subgraph. So the momentum of Spider versus the momentum of the S&P 500. Let's go ahead and go over here to my development environment. I don't have it open yet. So I'm going to go to apps and click on EasyLanguage. All right, let me close some of the indicators that are open and start with a new one. So file, new, and I'm going to click on indicator. All right, this will be at MC momentum two symbol or multi-data. I should have called it multi-data momentum, but that's fine. Momentum multi-data. Let's go ahead and click OK. All right, so the first thing that I think of when I'm calculating momentum is how far back do I want to look in order to calculate this momentum. So let's go ahead and create an input. And we create an input because we want to have this flexibility in the front end of our software so that we can modify that number. Because if we hard coded into the easy language, we would have to come here all the time to make modifications to that number. And it's just a more cumbersome process. By having this input, I can do it in the front end by just editing the indicator. So my input here is going to be momentum length. Many times I like to spell my inputs and my variables out because I'm not really good at remembering abbreviations. It's a coincidence that I remembered the MO for momentum. It just, I guess I remember that because it just sounds funny in my head, But here I spell out everything, and you can choose to spell out everything or use abbreviations. I'm going to use a momentum of 10. Look, 10 bars ago. If I'm on a daily chart, this 10 would represent 10 days ago or 10 trading days ago. This is the only one that I'm going to be using right now. And I'm going to type in or create two variables. Okay, so my variables are going to be two. I'm going to calculate the momentum of data one, in this case, Spider, and the momentum of data two, which is the S&P 500. I don't have to specify the symbol in here. All I need to do is reference the data number. Where do I get the data number? Well, if I only have two symbols, it's pretty simple and straightforward. I know that data one is always the first symbol that starts the chart. So I know that in my example, data one is Spider. And data two, since it's the second symbol that I added to the chart, becomes the S&P 500. So I don't have to really go back and check. However, let me go and tell you where you can check which data number has been assigned to each one of these data streams. All you need to do is go to data and then edit symbol. When you go to edit symbol, it gives you a list of all the symbols that have been added to the chart. And here's the data number that has been assigned to that data stream. We see that data one is Spider and data two is the S&P 500. So again, when it's two symbols, it's very simple to figure out. It gets a little bit more complex when you introduce more and more symbols. Remember that you can add up to 50 different symbols into a chart. Let me go ahead and go back to my EasyLanguage code. My variables is going to be momentum data one. Notice that when you type in the word momentum, it comes up magenta. I would stay away from anything that turns a specific color because EasyLanguage is able to recognize that word. It knows what it is, and you don't want to create any conflicts. So momentum data one turns black, so I know that's not being used. And this is going to be a numeric variable. It's going to hold a number. And then I'm going to do momentum of data two, and that's also going to be a number. Those are going to be my two calculations. And I'm going to assign a particular calculation to them. So once I've declared my variables, I have to specify what the calculation is. I have to assign the calculation. So momentum data one, it's going to be equal to momentum. I'm going to use the function now. Now, if you have questions about the function and what it does, you can always right click on the word and say, open the function momentum. I really don't want to see the function. I want to see help on this function. I want to click on definition of momentum. There's a lot of great documentation in EasyLanguage, so make sure that we are using it. So you can see that in the syntax, momentum needs two parameters. That needs the price and it needs the length. You can look at, the parameters, you can look at the remarks, and you can look at an example here. Notice that momentum, it's used in this way, the close and then the period here. Okay. So I'm going to use the close, and I'm not going to hard code this number because I created it as an input. So let me go over here, and my variables or my parameters, I'm sorry, for the momentum function are going to be close, comma, momentum length. That's it. I close the parentheses and then I add a semicolon at the very end. Everybody sees that? And since it's data one, I don't have to use a qualifier, data one. Remember that we said that once you start referencing multiple data streams, you have to specify which data is it that you are referencing. When you don't use a qualifier of a data number, EasyLanguage assumes that it's data one. It's just going to go right into data one. So you don't need a qualifier. If I wanted to, I can just type in data one here. This is optional. Whenever I'm dealing with multiple data streams, I always use it. Even if EasyLanguage assumes that it's going to be data one, it uses data one as a default. I always use data one qualifier so that it just keeps my code cleaner, and I can see data one, in contrast with the other data that I'm using. Let me add another line here, and momentum of data two equals the momentum of the close. I'm going to use the same length, momentum length, but in this case, it's going to be data two. So it's exactly the same formula. One references data one, the other one references data two, and then I have those two right here in place. All I need to do is plot them. Plot one, momentum, data one. One of the benefits of using a shorter name is that you don't have to spend so much time typing the word, and it also reduces typographical errors. Hopefully, I'm typing everything as it should. EasyLanguage will make sure to give me an error if it doesn't find matching words. So I'm plotting momentum data one and momentum. I'm going to say D1 for this one. If you guys remember our last EasyLanguage class, the quotations around this is just a label. It just creates a very nice label for the column if you're using the indicator in RadarScreen, and also a label if you go to modify an indicator and you go to the list of plots. Plot number 2 is momentum data 2, and this is momentum D2. Momentum is the type of indicator that will be positive and negative depending on where the prices are. Remember that we're comparing the current closing price against the closing price 10 bars ago. So this could be lower, negative number, or higher, positive number. So whenever you have that style of indicator, it makes sense to have a zero plot. To have a zero plot, and the label, I'm just calling it zero. All you need to do is type in the number here, and EasyLanguage will create a very nice horizontal line at that value. Makes it very simple for you to create horizontal lines on a chart or an indicator, because all you need to do is add a plot statement and then put a number in there, and TradeStation will draw a line at that number. Okay, I think we're ready. Let's verify this. Perfect. I typed in everything correctly. It had no errors. I can see the output right here at the bottom. Let's go ahead and go to the properties. Remember that when we verify, we have to go through the properties so that we can change the style of this indicator. I'm going to go to chart style. Here's where we find the little labels that we specify here. Notice how nicely named they are. So instead of just seeing plot 1, plot 2, and plot 3, now I can see the name of the plot: momentum D1, momentum D2, and 0. Momentum D1, let's make it a thicker line so it's easier on the eyes. I do that on my classes and on my personal TradeStation. It's a personal preference. I like my lines to be a little bit thicker. Up to you to do that. Momentum data 2, I want to make that thicker also, and 0 doesn't really matter, but I'm going to choose just a second thickness. For the chart color, momentum data 1, we can choose different colors here. I'm going to use a dark blue for one, and I'm going to use a bright blue for the other. And my momentum 0, I'm just going to set it to white. Feel free to use any colors you'd like. I'm not doing or using this in RadarScreen, so I'm not gonna look at grid or grid color. Grid properties are for RadarScreen because the indicator would be part of a grid. For the scaling, we do want the indicator to be on its own axis. So right axis is the option that I want. And this is it. I'm gonna click OK and then verify one more time. So let me go back here to my chart, and I'm going to put that indicator right here. I'm going to go to studies, add study, my list. I'm going to go here to the very top, add MC, and this is momentum multi-data. I click OK, and that's what the indicator looks like. Notice how the indicator looks. A lot of times when you start creating an indicator, you start thinking about how it's going to look. I wasn't expecting one thing about this indicator, which is the difference between the values. I mean, when I say the difference is the difference, see the S&P is valued at 500, where the S&P 500 is valued at 5,000. We're talking about, 10 times higher, right? So that's what's reflected here in the momentum indicator as well, where the cyan line, the lighter blue line, has more spikes of ups and downs because of the magnitude of the value, which is 5, the difference between, those closing bars. Whereas, the other one, it's minor changes because we're talking about hundreds instead of thousands. So when we look at the indicator historically, you can see how the darker blue line is more like a flat line, just because of that reason. So maybe we can modify the indicator to be a little bit different. Instead of using a straight subtraction, we can use a ratio and divide one by the other. Let's go and take a look. Let's take a look at the calculation here. We're looking at momentum of the close. Let me do something here. Close minus the close 1 bar ago divided by the close 1 bar ago. So this gives me some sort of a percent change, maybe. Let me put this in parentheses. Just trying to create a percentage. If my formula is incorrect, let me know. All right. And I'm going to copy this and also put it right here. Sometimes the formulas are tricky if you're not really good at math, which is my case. No, that's not true. I tend to think that I'm good at math, but let's see. Let me verify this and see. You see, there's no EasyLanguage error. So it does recognize my EasyLanguage is fine. It doesn't verify, the accuracy of the mathematical formula. It just understands that there's math in there. I'd have to go to the indicator and understand, what's happening. Let me go back here into my code. That didn't do much. Close of data 1. This is data 2. All for data 2, and this is for data 1. So maybe that didn't have a big effect. So I thought I was gonna, calculate. Oh, I know what I'm doing. This is the wrong. My parentheses are in the wrong place. Remember that what I told you about the mathematical formula, and not doing things correctly. I have to do the subtraction first, right? That's why I have to control and then divide it by the close of the prior bar. Let's verify this. Uh-oh. Study not verified. We did something wrong. It says more inputs expected here. Notice what it highlights. It highlights my parentheses. The reason for that is because I'm using, let's see, I'm using this parentheses to enclose this, and then I'm using this parentheses. I need an extra parenthesis here. You see, those are some of the things that you have to be aware of. Verify again. Okay, now I don't have any errors. Let's go ahead and take a look at the indicator. Okay. Now take a look at what happens here. Now I have the opposite happening. And again, I wasn't visualizing exactly what I was going to get, but this makes a lot of sense. Why does it make sense? It's because, the spider is derived from the S&P 500, and the movements of those two symbols are very similar. So in this case, when you look at the price change from one bar to the next, they're going to be very close to each other, which is what's happening here. Now, if we were to use a different symbol, maybe we see some different variation, but the S&P 500 is always going to follow, or vice versa. The spiders are always going to follow the S&P 500 index very closely. But then again, effect and result. What you do in the EasyLanguage is going to directly affect the visual, and then you start analyzing, okay, now I'm understanding what's happening here. Let's see what we can do to make this different. If I were to maybe change the S&P 500 and say, let's turn this into Tesla. Notice what I'm doing. I'm clicking on the candlesticks. And this is something that you'll realize as you start using multi-data charts, that you can click on a specific data stream and change the symbol of just that one. And this becomes very handy when you have, 5 or 6 different symbols on the chart and you just want to change one. Click on the one you want to change, type in the symbol you want, hit enter, and then it changes that indicator for you. So notice that I've changed the second data stream to Tesla, and now my indicator recalculates. Now it's not a matter of calculating momentum for spiders and S&P 500. Now I'm calculating the momentum, in this case, the momentum of the price change, which is something really different than what we started off. We started off with just straight momentum, and then we modified the formula to give us percent change. So that's what we're seeing here, but we're seeing the percent change on Spider versus the percent change on Tesla, which are interesting concepts, okay? All right, Q, thank you. Yeah, replacing the symbol just changes the calculation. Thank you for that suggestion. All right. Thank you, Chuck, for the suggestion. Well, about the parentheses around the numerator. Brad is saying, I was wondering if you'd be able to discuss what happens with multi-time frame calculations where the time frames are ending at different times. Wow, that's an interesting one, Brad, because if you have data symbols that are finishing at different times, all you need to think about is what EasyLanguage is calculating. If you have EasyLanguage looking at the close of the price, of the closing of the bar, what I think would happen, and I haven't tested this in my use of TradeStation, but what I think would happen is that one of the symbols will continue to update tick by tick until the closing time. So that closing price continues to update, and it may affect the calculation of your study. So it's something that you would have to test, Brad, in your case, and see what behavior you get. And in your case, I would also use some print statements. Print statements are great to debug your system because it actually prints to a file or prints to the print log so that you can see which values are being printed, and it just helps you, find out what the issue is. Let's go ahead and create a strategy. Do we have time to create a strategy? I think we do. Let's do it very quickly. We have about 10 minutes in class. I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to remove this as well. Let me disable account orders and positions. I'm going to go back here and change the symbol back to what we had, which is the S&P 500. And let's go ahead and take a look at one simple strategy. Let's go ahead and go studies. I'm going to add a study just to set the tone. I'm going to go and just choose a moving average. Moving average. Where is it? Just one line. That's right there. I'm going to go to studies, add study. I'm going to do it again. Notice what I'm going to do something different here. I'm going to select the moving average. I'm going to prompt for editing. Why am I doing that? Because I want to make sure that if I add the indicator, it doesn't go on data 1. I want the indicator to go on data 2. So when you're working with multi-data charts, you have to be aware of this and specify where is it that you want to study. So I'm going to check this box that says prompt for editing because I want to tell it to go to data 2. So I'm going to click OK here. And on the general tab of this dialog, I'm going to say, select data number 2 here. Notice how you'll see a drop down that lists all the symbols that are in your chart. In this case, I see spider and I see the $ SPX, which is the one that I'm going to select, and I'm going to click OK. So now you have those two indicators on the chart. Now let me go ahead and modify the top one. I'm going to make this indicator maybe an 8. And then I'm going to make this second indicator, and let me double click on it, and I'm going to make it a 21. So I'm using an 8 and a 21 moving average on both indicators. And I'm going to create a strategy that is going to look at the crossovers of those two symbols and only trade when it looks at both. So let me show you what I mean by that. And Zolt, I see your comment about showing correlation. We may not have time to show it, Zolt, here, but I want to show you that we have that study built in already. And just go to correlation. Put it on a multi-data chart. For example, here I have spiders and the S&P 500. When you put it on a multi-data chart, it'll go down here. Of course, on a correlation study, you can see that clearly these two symbols are highly correlated. They're almost one because they are derived from each other. But you can look at the EasyLanguage of this correlation. Just right-click on it and go to edit EasyLanguage for correlation and see how it's set up. Okay, let me go back here to my code very quickly. I'm just going to create a strategy. File, new strategy. This will be at MC. MA cross multi-data. All right, so here we go. Inputs. D1 length. And we said that was 8. And we see D2 length. And we said that that was 21, right? I'm just setting up the inputs for the strategy because remember that indicators and strategies are separate. And I want this to be exactly how we have it on the chart. My variables. Let me spell that correctly. Variables. This word needs to come up in blue. My variables are MOV, AVG, data 1, D1. This is numeric. Again, these are words that I'm making up. You can make any word that fits what you want. MOV, AVG, D2, which is the moving average for data 2. And once I declare the variables, I just have to assign the calculation to each one. MOV, AVG for D1 is going to be equal to the average of the close for D1 length. And MOV, AVG, D2 is going to be equal sign the average of the close of D2 length, but of data 2. Remember that we need that qualifier there in order for it to reference the calculations on data 2. I could have also included here. This is also optional, close data 2. Sometimes I like this better because I'm always qualifying which closing price I want. You know, many times if you look at the ones that TradeStation creates, it has the formula and then it puts data 2, data 3 right here at the very end. I like to, whenever I'm referencing the closing price of the bar, I always like to tell it, you know, which data is it that I'm looking at. And so it doesn't look odd. I always add data 1 here, which is not necessary, but I just want everything to be consistent and I can see, you know, which data or closing price is being used. And that's it. We have our calculated values, and all we need to do is now set up our rules. And this is our rules. If the close, and I'm looking at the close of data 1, which is spider. If the close is greater than MOV, AVG, D1, and the close is greater than close data 2 is greater than MOV, AVG, D2. So what I'm looking is for the closing price to be above the average. I'm going to call that bullish. You know, both of them are above their average. I'm going to do a buy order here. Buy. Then buy. Next bar at market. Then if then, yep, there we go. Now, okay, let's verify that. So that works. And then let's see, else sell next bar at market. Okay, so what we're going to do, as long as the two prices of data 1 and data 2, I can say data 1 here if I want to, just so that is a little more clear. The close of data 1 is above the average and close of data 2 is above the average. As long as those two conditions are true, I'm going to be long. I'm going to buy next bar at market. Otherwise, if the condition is not true, then I'm going to sell. So this is going to allow me to sell my position as soon as one of these drops below the average. Let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to verify this. I'm going to put it on the chart to see what it looks like. Studies, add strategy, and we called it, let's see, moving average cross multi-data right here. I'm going to click OK. And here it is. Let's go ahead and take a look at a few trades to see what's going on. Of course, data 1 is the one that's using the fastest moving average. So it's going to have more crossovers than the one we have down here, which is a 21 bar average. But you can see that as soon as we have a crossover to the upper side and the S&P in this case is above that average, it goes long. But as soon as it crosses over here to the downside, it closes my trade and then enters again if the condition is true. Let me go ahead and see if we can, because all the selling transactions are being triggered by the top one. You know, on the strategy, I'm very quickly able to go into the inputs and say, I want to use 21 for both. You know, and then I'm going to double click on this one so that it's 21. There we go. They're going to be highly correlated, right? So over here, we enter that long trade because they were both above the average. Notice that on this bar, on this bar, they were both below the average. So in this case, you know, since they're highly correlated, then of course, you know, they're both going to have similar crossovers. But we can have and change the symbol, let's say, for example, to the Dow Jones, $INDU. So here, the condition, the selling transaction happened because we had that cross to the downside. It didn't trade down here because, as you see, my Dow Jones was below the average. So it triggered the order on the next bar. And since then, we've been on a long trade. Take a look at what's happening right now. Yes, we have a long trade that was generated back here in January 22nd. But what's happening to SPY? SPY is in a down trend today. We see that it's turning down, but it's still ways to go to cross that moving average. What's happening here on the Dow? The Dow has already crossed that moving average. But this strategy is going to wait until the close of the bar to generate that trade. If conditions hold until the end of the day and the Dow Jones is below that moving average, it would generate a closing transaction to close that market on the next bar. So that's the way that the strategy works, by comparing the crossovers between the two symbols. All right, that's what I wanted to show you. I think we went through different concepts of building multi-data charts, how to use some of the built-in studies that reference multi-data streams, and how to create an indicator and a strategy that references multiple data. Now, the ideas are going to be endless, and you're probably already thinking about how you can use this technology to create studies of your own. And that's the way to think about EasyLanguage, because I just give you the basis and then it's on to you to, to create these custom studies and custom strategies that really work for you and help you in your methodology. All right. I don't see any more questions. Let me go ahead and do something here. Since I have a couple minutes, I'm going to export these two files so that you can have them on your side. Let me go to File. This is the way that you export EasyLanguage. Import, export EasyLanguage. I'm going to choose this one that says export. Don't do the protected one unless you're sending it to someone that you don't want to have access to your EasyLanguage. That's the only reason why you would choose protected, because it's going to encrypt your code and you won't be able to open it even if you're the owner. So if it's just for you to make a backup or to share with someone, just choose this one that does not say protected, okay? Let's go ahead and go to my list of studies. I have an indicator and I have a strategy that I want to share with you. So this is at MC. We called it momentum multi-data analysis. And we have a strategy. Okay, these are only indicators. Let me go to my strategies and then do add MC. There we go, add MC, moving average multi-data, and then move them both here. Okay, it only moved the strategy. That's okay. Let me go back here to indicator. It's add MC momentum multi-data. So now I have the two indicators in there. Okay, I'm going to call this MC, and I'm going to give it today's date. Today is the 5th of March, right? So 3/5/2024. I'm going to finish. And it says you have successfully exported your studies. All right, so I don't think I have, let me see if I can pull it up. Q is asking, can you add something to that buy order? What if I wanted to buy on the next candle if price gets above the last closed candle plus 5 ticks? For sure, any type of condition Q, you can pretty much create those scenarios into your code and add additional conditions. You know, right here, yes, I'm looking at the crossover or where the price is in relationship to the average, but you can definitely, you know, put in those type of conditions into your code. The files that you put or that you export out of your TradeStation are sent to your documents folder by default. So you have to go to documents, and inside of the documents folder, you're going to find a TradeStation 10 folder. Go in there and then open up the exports. That's where you find, if you don't change the location, that's where EasyLanguage will export files to. Okay, there it is. I'm going to send it to everyone here. All right, so you're going to find that it's created into a zip folder. You have to open it. Inside of it is going to be an ELD file. And all you need to do is save the file to your computer somewhere. You can put it in your documents, your desktop, wherever you want to put it. And to import these two indicators that we worked on this indicator that looks at momentum and this indicator that looks at moving average crossovers. All you need to do is double click on that file, and TradeStation will launch the import wizard and get those two indicators into your TradeStation. Remember that the indicators start with the prefix at MC, so don't look for them alphabetically. They're going to be sorted to the top because of that special at symbol and special character. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining me today. Please check our events calendar because we have some very interesting classes coming up, and I don't want you guys to miss them. Please visit the Options Education Center if you haven't done so already. And thank you for your time. Have a wonderful afternoon, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.